Hey everybody, it's Brian with the Temple of Xeper. I'm going to be doing a couple of readings. Hopefully this will be put together in something cohesive and understandable. And I'm really looking for some feedback and seeing what some people think about what I got going on here. So, initiated, ascended, or not, there is no one who is all-knowing. However, there is a frequency that emanates from the ether that anyone can tap into, and many call intuition. There is no level of mentalism that can give the insight into people and situations that genuine intuition can. Instinct can play a major role in our perceptive reasoning that will help us to survive. But at this stage in our evolution, it must be used in collaboration with our higher perception, logic, and intuition, create a combined headspace necessary for the advanced level of the information analysis used in chaos weaving through the web of fate. There will be a normal baseline of physical perception with an overlay of ethereal focus that makes all of our choices come forth with a clarity we had previously not allowed ourselves. Even those who do not have the mind for spiritual concepts have a common understanding that we have a hunch that ends up being correct without any information at all, a completely blind assessment for a lucky guess. I've had many situations occur that my intuition has saved my life. Even when instinct didn't play a part, at least on a conscious level. It seemed that if my intuition enhanced my instinct in survival situations, but it has been an intuition that has helped me to thrive and open doors that my instinct could have never recognized. All it takes is an open mind and receptive center to listen to that small, still voice that tells us there is more to people and situations than they appear. There are hidden values in all things that we see in an intuitive center will lead us as our higher self wills. This is how we can know things that there's no physically possible way for us to know. The chaos magician must learn the ways of mentalism and logic just as much as the intuitive and ethereal arts. In this way, we can be effective and efficient in our actions and responses in every situation involved with the progression through this web. Learning ourselves, others, and how to process physically perceivable information is just as vital as learning to differentiate between the veil and the all, as we listen to our connection to the ethereal vibration. Having eyes for both sets of information will fine-tune our perception and enable us to establish a system of action that makes for wise decisions. This opens up opportunities that only instinct alone could not even imagine. It takes a deep level of authenticity within oneself to trust in the process and the connection to that nexus. It can be tricky to decipher two sets of information at first, but with practice becomes key in maintaining focus and balance to establish the progression from wisdom applied to power. Even with a dark mind dominant, introverted xenophobe must break the shell of isolation and participate in the light mind group of activities. It helps to balance us, of course, but the primary function of this is to feed the part of us that feels empathy for others. Without empathy, we cannot efficiently analyze ourselves or others. Establishing an empathetic bond adds a layer of precision and dexterity to our maneuvers as we traverse the lifelines of the web. This applies from dark to light as well as light to dark. The dark mind must become light in temporary bursts to be able to understand the nature of light, as in bonding with groups. Reading others. Showing tangible differences between self and external radiation sources, empathy and shared emotions. And the light mind must also perform within the dark spectrum, not only to defend against influence and vice versa, but to understand peace in solitude, vigilant caution, self-care, and self-preservation. We have much to learn from each other and will gain infinitely more by teaching. Conflict is necessary for evolution and ascension, but that conflict should be sought in a comfortable setting of open minds, striving to learn and grow. Now, that will rarely be the case. In fact, most of the time that conflict of source vibration will constantly escalate quickly into argumentative or aggressive tension to a point that the most elevated of practitioners fall victim to their reactionary nature. The point is to push our limits beyond our perceived capabilities, experience, and the new expanse of power at our disposal, and to utilize our newfound wisdom as applied to new subjects of experience in a way that is authentic to us as individuals, living by our cardinal virtues. To practice in solitude is necessary to gain an honest view of the self, and to practice our own projections with others in the vicinity of others is necessary to the scientific process of comparing the baseline of self to the variables of the external. The human being is a fickle creature. This fact must be kept at the forefront of our minds when we are dealing with others, because we may make our initial assessment on individuals or groups that only apply to the current now, just as much as we mindfully fluctuate between mental and energetic spectrums, others do as well. It stands to reason that if we manipulate our vibrational frequency radiation, others can too, even if they may not be aware of this shift, but on a subconscious level. People wear masks and tend to project their source energy in ways that present them with their own path of least resistance, based on their individual path. This appears to be submissive to the majority of the masses. Those of us who project our dominance willfully with intent have the advantage of being capable of conversion, changing, reception, draining, or destruction, neutralization of others. And that assimilation, which starts with empathy, among various other uses, is that the initiate will eventually discover through the process of Xeper, which is becoming or coming into being, and ascension. We cannot assume that anyone is as they seem, because they rarely are. It takes a keen eye to see past the illusionary magic people project, mindfully or instinctively, and a wise mind to analyze the input-output of external forces. One must experience all energy to its extremity, and people in various modes of projection to have a fuller view of objective reality. This takes time, trial and error, and a combination of our empathetic and logical assessments of energy flow. Too often we judge a book by its cover, to the high or low end, and find ourselves in unnecessarily precarious situations because we chose to act upon surface-level analysis and preconceived notions based on what we perceive within the first contact. It would be wise for us to take as much time as possible and test the input-output of others before acting in earnest towards forward progress in our workings. This applies even to our own sense of self, hence the necessity for self-checkups of our core vibration as we continue our path. We are fluid in our ascension, and the minute changes in our energy flow can lead to cataclysmic failure if we neglect to update our awareness of the self to external relationships. Now, the uninitiated mind is generally weak, constantly being influenced by external forces without much subconscious or instinctual reactions and basic mental defenses. The mass static energy flow is overwhelming and manifests as a mostly negative or destructive herd mentality that we may call the gray mind, for reference purposes, of course. Neither being of light or dark mind practices, gray minds pine for submission to the status quo of the herd, because they either cannot, will not, or fail to realize that they're even capable of manifesting their own will in the objective reality. To them, the world and the system of consent are the totality of their framework of existence. They live to play their role as a cog in the machine, never experiencing individual liberty or seeking more than the illusion of safety, security, and stability. They live to play their role as a cog in the machine, never truly experiencing the individual liberty or seeking more than the illusion of safety, security, and stability. They are defined and define each other by the fabricated roles or titles they enact in their profession or position of responsibility. While the gray mind can be shown the fallacy of their logic or lack thereof, they simply do not want to change their perspective from a sense of insecurity, fear, or flat-out ignorance to their own inability to manifest their hidden and dormant uniqueness and individuality, to find purpose in their lives that fulfills them rather than to fulfill the purposes of their puppeteers. Most people will outright fully and accept and support even the most horrifying and demeaning circumstances for no more reason than that's just how things are, right? We find that to be disgusting Orwellian system of terrorism inhibited by a foundation laid by the psychic life-leeching of authoritarianism. No wonder the masses are led to nihilism. They are forced by brainwashing and intergenerational torture, subtle and consistently fed the idea that left is right, and this is that, and you are this. They are that. It's you and them. Dividing us and setting us upon each other with hatred and despair, more concerned with the beliefs, practices, or life choices than the state and health of our collective consciousness, of all humanity. It is absolutely vital that the initiated and ascended continue to work from the dark and the light in order to lead the gray minds to a definitive point of perspective to differentiate the able and willing subjects from the massive gray mind power source. These gray masses are being fed upon unwittingly and unaware, yet fully giving over control of their will and sacrifice for a safety that does not protect them, a security that leaves them insecure, and a stability that is shattered by the whim of a group of parasitic elites and their minions of would-be thralls who feed off the blood, sweat, and tears of the populace. We may not be able to change the world, because much of the world doesn't see or doesn't want to see that they need to change. That is the horror of this system of control. We fight hidden masters and slaves who fight for them without even knowing they're slaves, or the fact that they can have the life they yearn for simply by refusing and rebuking the labyrinth of the elite power circuit. We can only be free by freeing ourselves. The sad truth is that the masses do not wish to be free, and they will fight, die, and kill for the system that holds them in bondage. Now, in regard to the light mind or submissive, we find the power of a group conscience or collective consciousness. The light-minded individuals, in their element, in concert with other light minds in practice, as their combined efforts submit to the will of that collective. The reason we deem the light as submissive is because the individual will is sacrificed to the group will, to create a larger or concentrated power flow toward workings. This takes a level of empathetic and symbiotic connection inherent in submissive nature that instills a feeling of oneness, as each individual intends for a separate oneness to be created through the coalescence of mixed energy attained through focus on a common goal. The light harbors harmony amongst shared vibrational frequency to be stored in the image that is created by the group. This can be readily accessed by the individual, regardless of proximity to the group. Much is the hypothesis of God creation that our shared belief in a power actually creates that power by storing our individual will in a submission to the ideal of the collective will. This is imperative for all practitioners as we discover the threads of our quantum entanglement of source energy to power flow and how those are interconnected and reactionary to each other. The light implies an external connection to others and the shared source vibration to tune our empathetic frequency to match and therefore project a mutual radiation, compelling exo-energetic harmony. A light mind will typically cling to others of like mind in order to have a constant contact with the group image or storage center and refine their energetic renewal or project their collective will towards the group ideal. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the dark mind or dominant will find power renewal within the confines of isolated or solitary practice, like me. We find that our source, in harmony with the baseline static of the all center, or nexus of all, i.e., the source or all energy, to be sustained sufficient to our workings. Light harmony to a dark mind is akin to blind faith, or more so, a drain on our individual stores of source energy. Much like the light mind will feel a separation from their source when in contact with a dark mind working. The dark mind will feel a depletion of source energy when in contact with light, as the light requires a taxation of sorts, of the whole self to fuel the all image. The dark mind finds power in the individual's practice of self-sustainment and oneness with the all source, rather than a collective effort of God creation. The dark mind seeks to allow a reception or fueling by the all, rather than to appeal to the external to do the work for us. Now, we seek to be imbued with the power of the all to aid us while we do our work from, I'm sure, what seems like a self-centered focal point of perception. But both minds are necessary in fluctuation, but a true synchronous radiation is only possible in the theoretical or analytical process we know as our higher self. The higher self sees both ends of the spectrum and has the wise mind to assess the now, all nows in fact, past, present, and infinity of futures in the quantum web of fate, in order to properly assess and perform our workings from either light or dark mind respectively. It is of paramount importance for us to use our wise mind in the analysis and decision-making process before we elect to project from our center or current self towards our goals. Always remain in wise mind even when utilizing either end of the spectrum sources. Remain fluid and adaptable as each now comes and goes. The focus of wisdom as applied to power balance is to properly apply methods of action to an individual's satisfactory reaction. The static buzzing of external forces, especially in regard to other beings of an elevated sentience, humans, can be overwhelming to the point of ethereal poisoning. I find it increasingly difficult to establish and maintain balance of mind and spirit when in close proximity to others, exponentially so with average humans. Their consciousness radiates a dulling effect with a multiplicity that staggers even the ascended when the density of that dull static reaches a certain vibrational frequency. I'm sure you've all felt this at some point. Now, from a dark-minded foundation of perception like myself, that appears as a high pitch that is akin to nails scraping on a chalkboard. It literally shakes my mental focal point like a psychic earthquake. I believe that the average human does not notice the effect on their environment because that is their natural state that they thrive on individually and more so when in company of other normies. Adversely, I don't think they are actively conscious of the effect my low pitch has on them, but it is abundantly noticeable to me. It takes very little effort from one end of the spectrum to affect the other, especially for the dark low to affect the light high. The difference appears to be active awareness, pointed, focused intent, and sheer number of source radiation. However, one source has the ability to divert or change the power flow of its opposite, if the opposite is not aware and focused with intent consciously. Example, if there's 9 normies in a room talking about destructive subjects, that'll be overpowered by one focused projection of creation or lack of projection by the one will, by default, force the other one into the power flow of the 9. The 9 will be overpowered by the 1 on the basis of the zeal of the 1 against the 9. Say that again. The will of the 9 will be overpowered by the 1 on the basis of the zeal of the 1 against the 9. But should one of the 9 be of equal or greater zeal, they may feed off the momentum and or potential energy of the majority. Here lies the standard for the conversion or neutralization of power flow. One practitioner may steer even the most powerful flow to their devices with an active awareness of the source of the vibrational frequency radiation, a higher understanding of action and reaction, and focused intent to project their will, and the follow-through of belief inherent in the initiated. Confidence in one's ability is key in overcoming opposing frequencies. And a simple trick to initiating the neutralization of that conversion is to begin with a brief but forceful assimilation with the opposing frequency to divide it from within, therefore conquering the source and allowing for an easier transition from the high to low vibrations. To go off a previous example, the 1 opposing the 9 destructive thinkers must begin the conversion by establishing a solid footing of destruction equal or greater to that of the 9, then lead the power flow towards the branch of creation with steady vibrations that will neutralize the unconscious participants, leaving the battle to the one with more focused intent to will the conversation as the source sees fit. There will usually only be one true source of either opposing frequency, so if you find yourself the source of one end of the spectrum, deduce the source of the conflicting vibration and turn the flow from them, using their own frequency to ethereally hack their drones, or their followers, then use your own frequency to influence them against the source of your opposition. Simple one-on-one conflicts appear to be a simple matter of proper analyzation, confidence in your beliefs, in your abilities, and the follow-through with your own will and intent. We cannot assume to be practitioners with any tangible power if we do not stand on our belief in ourselves, our source, and our virtues, no matter what they may be. Our intuition and instinct may make up for our lack of understanding, but the combined force of wisdom applied to analysis with our intuitive nature makes us a true force to be reckoned with. There are no powers that can overwhelm us lest we allow it. Power is not taken, it is given. Allow the power flow into your source vibration and become power.